Almost in the heart of ancient Europe lies a colorful little country where about 4 million inhabitants of French, German, and Italian origin have defied traditional prejudices and founded a friendly nation known to the world as Switzerland. Switzerland the Beautiful, a land of snow-capped mountains, fragrant pine woods, crystal blue lakes, babbling brooks, and flower-laden meadows, where something of spring, summer, autumn, and winter may be seen during any season of the year. Aside from this scenic beauty, the Swiss Alps have played a most important part in the history of Switzerland, for the invading armies of the old Roman Empire were stopped at the foothills of the Alps, never realizing that beyond the formidable Alpine peaks were fertile plateaus and flower-strewn meadows, where man and nature could live in perfect harmony. And thus it was that the Swiss Alps protected the native people of Switzerland until they established a republic, which remains today as the oldest existing republic in the world. In May and June, the flowery pageant is at its best, for every hill and valley is covered with an assortment of vividly colored wildflowers, a rustic symphony of fertility and freshness. An interesting feature of alpine plant life is the tremendous size of the flower in proportion to the plant itself. The energy in the roots is devoted first to the flower, which is in full bloom long before the leaves of the plant are developed, and this accounts for the vivid colors so characteristic of alpine wildflowers. In contrast to the modest little wildflowers are the rushing mountain streams, which originate in the regions of snow and swiftly flow down the mountainsides and through the valleys, beautifying the landscape and bringing superabundant water power and constant sustenance to the fertile soil of the country. Nestling amidst the flowery meadows, we find a typical dwelling, which illustrates the inherent love of color, which is so characteristic of the Swiss people. Elaborating the windows with painted designs is one of the oldest and most unique practices in the decorative art of Switzerland. The picturesque old city of Lucerne is a favorite spot for travelers who regard it as a delightful center in which to spend a holiday. Aside from the fact that it has some of the finest hotels in the world, its unique situation at the point where the Lake of Lucerne touches the northern edge of the Central Alps makes it a natural focus for Switzerland's great tourist traffic. There is a beautiful old world atmosphere about Lucerne, and quaint old wooden bridges of historic renown bring joy to the hearts of the lovers of medieval architecture. The decorative watches and clocks that are constantly on display remind us that Switzerland leads the world in their manufacture and that a large percentage of her population is engaged in their production. Perhaps the most famous of the many interesting sights in Lucerne is the Lion Monument, which perpetuates the memory of the brave Swiss guards who were killed in the defense of Louis XVI during the French Revolution. In the smaller towns of Switzerland, on special occasions, native costumes are worn. The people of Switzerland are of German, French, and Italian lineage, about 70% of them speaking German and the remainder speaking French and Italian. But in spite of their ancestry and the political strife that often surrounds their little country, they have developed no national prejudices outside of Switzerland itself, which is a perfect model of peace and neutrality. Wood carving is an old craft that is still practiced in some of the smaller villages, and it is not an uncommon thing to find some very fine specimens of the art, fascinating in their vigor and simplicity and expressive of local tradition. Upon arriving at the famous resort of Interlaken, we behold the glorious summit of the Jungfrau, which is approached by a railway whose terminus lies in the very midst of the most magnificent of alpine scenery. Great peaks soar sublimely over all, timeless as eternity itself. From the Jungfrau Joch are to be obtained the wonderful views of the surrounding country, which before the advent of the railway was the jealously guarded preserve of the alpine climber. The fact that it is on the border of one of the most important snow and glacier regions in the Alps has caused Interlaken to become one of the most popular resorts in Switzerland. The grazing land on the Swiss mountainsides is the property of the community, and every villager has the right of pasturage. Down in the valley during the great grazing season, the herds are assembled early in the morning and driven to the communal pastures. After sunset, they are returned and claimed by their respective owners. Switzerland contains a relatively high proportion of happy and prosperous citizens. Freedom and equality are widespread, and about 9 out of every 10 families own the soil they cultivate. Consequently, there are no great extremes of poverty or wealth in this independent little republic. The largest and most cosmopolitan city in Switzerland is Geneva, headquarters of the League of Nations and a recognized center for international conferences. Situated on the banks of the River Rhone at the western extremity of the beautiful Lake of Geneva, it has been highly praised by poets and will remain in the memory of every visitor as a city of great charm and unique position. Geneva is a city where the best that is in man harmonizes with the best that is in nature. It has long carried on a crusade against all that is old within its boundaries. But for the past 100 years or more, its history has been international rather than local. Perhaps humanity's greatest debt to Geneva lies in the fact that it was in this fair city that the world-famous Red Cross Society was founded, and its first international meeting was held in this building over 70 years ago. In deference to Switzerland, the colors of the Swiss flag, showing a white cross on a red field, were reversed to form the flag of the Red Cross Society, a society that now has over 20 million members throughout the world, devoted to unprejudiced acts of mercy in behalf of humanity. It is fitting that the city which houses the parent society of the Red Cross should also be the one to open its gates and welcome to the League of Nations, thereby establishing headquarters in Geneva for 2 of the most uplifting forces ever inaugurated in the cause of civilization. And it is with this thought that we say, farewell to Switzerland, the beautiful.